Good morning, Andrew.
Morning.
How you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Excellent stuff. Right.
Morning, Andrew.
Okay, so we're going to crack into this. Welcome, Andrew and all who are going to be watching this on the recording, post what we're doing here today. And this is our Munch and Learn. So this is every week we go through a particular topic and we give that real insight from an expert in that topic around how we can help all of our businesses get to the next level. So when thinking about that today, we're going to be really focusing with Paul. Welcome, Paul, who is going to talk to us all about SEO and some wonderful stuff about promoting our websites across our region, across the nation, across the world even, as we do every time. So I'm going to ask Paul, first of all, to just introduce himself and give us a bit of background as to your business, and then we'll kind of get into it. So, Paul, who are you?
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning. Who am I? Well, I'm the co-founder of a company called Beyond Your Brand. We're a digital marketing agency based just outside of Oxford. We celebrated our 5th birthday in October this year. We've grown to a team of 9 people in the business. We started the business with a couple of really sort of quality values, or what we believe to be quality values. And the first was to try to break digital marketing down for businesses to understand and be very open. Everything that we believe successful businesses do in terms of decision making comes from data. And there's a wealth of data when it comes to digital marketing through analytics and search consoles and various different software tools. And presented properly and understood properly, they can really help businesses take decisive action around their strategy in order to get their websites more visible. There's nothing worse than having gone to the effort and maybe the expense of building a beautiful website is highly functional and does everything that your customers want to do, for it then not to be found. And so as a business, we offer website design through a subscription model. So our model doesn't we don't charge anything up front. We have a thing called the 100 Club, which is essentially £100 a month for websites that we don't charge anything up front for, that is all encompassing. So hosting, maintenance, backup, security, all that is included. But probably the most valuable part of that is the update service that we offer alongside. And so our clients are able to update their website with content changes up to 6 times per month with no additional costs. So every time they've got a piece of news to talk about, or a testimonial or case study, perhaps they're writing a blog or an article to help Google understand the keywords that are associated with their business that they want to be found for, new team members come and go, whatever it might be, they can then just send that over to us and then we'll update their website for them. And then that helps the website evolve as the business evolves. That's what we would love to see, is that every business owner that looks at their website today, they feel that that website is a reflection of their business as it stands, and not a reflection of their website a year, their business a year or 2 years ago when they had the website built. Right. So that evolution. And then alongside the website design and build, we have digital marketing services. So we offer search engine optimization services. We offer pay-per-click management campaigns, social media advertising campaigns, and the two sort of complement each other very, very nicely, hand in hand.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that introduction. Clearly, a broad brush in terms of capabilities there with you and the UK-based team, as we were talking about earlier on. So that's all fantastic. So today, what we really want to understand is the concept of SEO, and also some of the things that people can do in particular to improve their SEO. So just to remind it, search engine optimization, that's what we're talking about. So if you could start off by just giving us the principles around SEO before we get into the detail.
Yeah, so if you think about Google's job, and I'm only saying Google, there are obviously other search engines available, but at sort of 97, 98% market share, really satisfying Google probably means you're satisfying the others. Google is like a librarian, and it's the biggest library in the world, in the universe. It's huge. Every web page needs to ideally be understood by the search engines. So if you imagine your Google today, and I walk into your library, into your reception, and say, "Hi, Jeremy, I would like to find some information about XYZ."
Yeah.
If you stood back and looked at the scale the sheer scale of what you might have to interpret in order to direct me to not just a page with information, but what you deem the best page. It's the most informative. It's going to tell me what I need to know to make a decision or to make a purchase or to understand information. You've now got to direct me to that specific page. And so Google goes through, in fact, in its infancy, it's worth just noting that when Google started, it started with a team of people, human beings, who were given an amount of time. I don't know what the exact amount of time, but let's say 5 minutes for understanding purposes. 5 minutes per website to understand what that website was about, and essentially tag the pages with what it thought those pages were about. So that when somebody searched for something, I don't know, I want to buy a jacket, the websites that sold jackets were the ones that were matched up. As the internet grew with the sheer volume of websites being presented and listed on the internet, it was clear that you couldn't do this with the human factor. And probably the most important thing to understand is what drives it now. And that's software. It's an algorithm. And it's an algorithm that is constantly being evolved to become more and more intelligent, with its single purpose. And that purpose hasn't changed and will never change. And it's to serve the most informative, the most matching criteria that it can to the searcher. Google doesn't get any money from people doing search SEO. We don't have to take a slice of our revenue and give it to Google. It gets nothing from it. But it's become this platform that is so good at matching up the inquiry with the result that everybody uses it. And therefore, Google now has, the ability to sell advertising space essentially and sponsored ads. So in its nuts and bolts, it is literally, from an SEO point of view, as a customer or as a business, it is doing what is necessary to get your website and your individual web pages firstly understood for what they're about, and then in a sort of competitive way, make sure that those pages and your website are more informative and impress the algorithm more than your competitors do. And therefore you'll rank higher up the spaces. When you search on Google currently, you don't get two side by side. It's literally a ranking position. Number one is followed by number two and followed by number three down to maybe several thousand. But it's those ranking positions that count. It's really only the top page of Google that counts anything. And even the top half of that top page, that page number one, that's where you get your clicks. So it varies slightly by industry, but as a rough rule of thumb, you can say that 33% of your clicks are going to be to that number one organic position, maybe 25% number two, 15% number three. But by the time you get to the bottom of page one, you're talking 1%. Page two and beyond, you're talking, 0.1%. It's almost invisible. So SEO is just about getting those people into those top ranking positions so that some of that search volume comes to their website.
Right. Okay. And it's a really interesting analogy about the library you use there, because one of the other factors is, when I think about this when talking with clients about advertising and we talk about target market, it's not just a case that I want to book on dogs, but I want to book on dogs. I'm a white male, I'm over 40, and I live in the area I live. And that's so therefore the person judging or being asked, i.e. Google in this instance, is going to match me up based on my criteria almost as much as the whole fact of what I'm searching for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Geographical location. I mean, Google's algorithms got really, really smart. If I didn't put a geographical term to one of my searches, so let's say, for example, I'm searching, my tap started leaking, so I need a plumber. So I'm searching plumber. I live in a place called Whitney, just outside of Oxford. If I went to the bother of saying plumber Whitney, then fine. But actually, Google's more intelligent than that. I could search, I need a plumber, and it will only show me those local listings because it automatically assumes that I don't want a plumber to travel down from Scotland. It gets that. So it's, the algorithm is becoming, well, there were so many updates to the algorithm in the last 12 months. It was just unreal to sort of try and keep up with them, but it's becoming more and more sophisticated on a day-by-day basis. And yeah, like you say, I think when it comes to demographic information about you being a white male, your age group, that ties in much more with pay-per-click advertising, because we can create a set of adverts for people and only target that demographic. But search engine optimization with regards to geography is a big thing now. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect, excellent. And so that's the concept of SEO, and we're putting things into categories so Google can find it. And obviously, if we're selling coats, they go into coats, but I might call it a jacket. And
Yeah.
there's more than one word beautifully in the English language for many things. So I suppose, how do we get over that sort of issue in regards to tagging? And can you just be a little bit clearer on the tagging and how you actually do that in a web page?
Yeah, I mean, gone are the days where you specifically tag a web page. That used to be tools available, and they did still are when you're building websites to tag, but the algorithms have become more sophisticated than that. So there's a few things that you can do. Firstly, to an extent, Google understands different terminology for the same thing. So there is a degree of intelligence that you don't have to worry about. Certainly, singular and plural, it doesn't really matter. If you want to be known for jacket and jackets, then Google takes care of that itself. You don't have to sort of fudge up your content on your pages to sort of have a number of terms jacket and a number of terms jackets, in order to sort of satisfy the SEO. Google can take care of that. But when it comes to feeding Google the information, going back to you as a librarian, Jeremy, you would never have enough time, in your lifespan to read all these pages. So we have to assume that Google cannot read all these pages. When it comes to understanding the limitations of the algorithm, what is really useful to understand is just when it was like a human factor, there was only so much time and resource available to understand websites. The algorithm is powered by processors, just like any piece of software. And processors, just like any processor in your PC, your laptop, on a server, they're powered by electricity. So the more processing power you do, the more electricity you have to provide to it. And that's a bill, that's a utility bill at the end of the day. So Google will dedicate enough of its processing time and apply its software to websites as often as it thinks it needs to. So it's slightly off topic, but useful to understand, I think, at this point. There was a sort of fairly relevant world event over the last 24 hours with this big eruption of the volcano in Iceland. You can go on to Google and you can search information. And if you type in volcano eruption Iceland, you will get dozens, hundreds of web pages starting to talk about those things, usually from BBC, CNN, Sky News. Mm-hmm. What you have to understand is those pages are no different to the pages of an action coach website or one of our websites, or one of your clients' websites. They are just a web page, but they've been understood, they've been indexed by Google, and they've been prioritized in a ranking order, which is really quite smart, because how does Google know where it needs to spend its time in advance? It doesn't. So it kind of classifies people with a domain rating. This isn't technically correct. Some of the things I'll say aren't technically correct, but they're good for understanding. A domain rating is usually a score out of 100. It takes in lots of metrics. The higher your domain rating, the more often Google is likely to crawl your website and look for new information.
Right.
The other job of Google is to make sure it has the most up-to-date information. So for websites like Sky News, CNN, where information could be published at any time, and that information is consumer rich, people want to know about it, then Google, I think the algorithm basically stays on the website. It dedicates a dedicated resource to those websites to keep checking for new information. Because if you search for information about the volcano eruption in Iceland and Google didn't show you those pages because it was lacking behind time-wise, then it won't take long before the likes of you and I will start looking at the other search engines and using them as our basis because they're quicker. So Google has to keep up with this. Mm-hmm. So Google will come back to your website as often as it thinks it needs to. So coming back to your original point, how do you provide this information if you want to talk about coats or jackets or other terminology? You have to provide the information. It can't look at every single page and determine from word 1 down to word X at the bottom, exactly what everything's about. So the good starting point is your metadata. Metadata, by definition, is a set of data that tells something about the rest of the data. So it's the metadata is your titles of the pages, your descriptions of the pages, your H1s, H2s, H3s. So just like you might compose a Word document, a comprehensive Word document with a higher an H1 heading at the top and then some H2s breaking the page down. It's those headings and those titles and descriptions that inform Google what that page is all about. So it used to be, when the algorithm was more in its infancy, that stuffing, we call it keyword stuffing, stuffing that metadata with as many of the relevant keywords as you can, is your best way to get rankings. But that's not the case now. It's become too smart. And so having good quality metadata that does include the primary keywords that you want to be known for is a good place to start. And instead of stuffing lots of keywords, so let's say you have a range of jackets and you have a range of coats, you might be inclined to even write an article about what's the difference between a jacket and a coat. And then your metadata, you're talking about your jackets and your coats. Google can see that as an informative piece of information maybe somebody wants to know. And actually what you're doing is you're enhancing what Google knows about your website, but in a natural and informative and valuable way. So
Right.
Producing more content, having perhaps even a page for jackets, a page for coats, explaining differences, giving consumers that useful information is probably your highest, gives you the highest chance of outranking your competitors.
Okay, all right, that's really interesting then. So where would you put a metadata paragraph, summary, however you want to choose it? I mean, clearly you're not actually going to put that in the text.
No, most websites are built using CMSs, content management systems. We use CMSs to build our clients' websites, but the ones that you might be familiar with are WordPress, the DIY market, Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy. They all have their own CMS to allow people to kind of drag and drop page information into there. Within that CMS, before you go to publish any web page, is a section where you put your titles, your descriptions, your headings, and things like that. So it's kind of, it depends on the CMS as to where you would find it, but it's always very prevalent because Google wants to know it. The CMS systems have to provide an easy way for you to kind of done behind the scenes. But any CMS system, it would be fairly easy to find where to enter the metadata.
And what would you say is the best tool to ensure that your metadata is written in its most optimum way?
Not so much a tool, I would say, but think of every search that you want to be known for, think of it as a competition, a race, let's say. And some of those races, like the high traffic races, are like the marathon. The exposure you get for winning the marathon is huge, and so you get all these leads. But some of the races might be more like your village 3K race, jog around, whatever. The exposure you get locally is quite good. You might get some leads from that, but the search volume, the interest is much, much lower. But each individual search term is like a race. And so what you have to consider is what is already happening, who's already been training to win that race. Because if you're just starting today, you're behind the curve. And so it's not a tool, but a good way to do this. There is a tool called Detailed. Let me just grab the exact name. Detailed SEO extension. It's an extension to Chrome, so it's free. You just go into your settings up where you would access your bookmarks. There's a setting for extensions, manage extensions, go to the store, and Detailed SEO extension is the extension you want to grab. Once you put that on there onto your website, you can just click on that. It sits there as a little button icon at the top right. And you can click on that on any website and it will tell you what the metadata is for that website. So it goes without saying that the people who are already in position 1, 2, 3, 4 for the search terms that you might want to be known for have done some work. There's a reason why Google already put them there. So go and have a look and do your research at your competition by using that extension to see what metadata is already working well. Because you don't have to, if you're entering a 5K race, you don't have to train like you're training a marathon to be at the top. It's much more tangible. It's easier to do. You just have to train enough to beat that person in front of you. Does that mean that you would beat Mo Farah at a marathon? No, of course not. But it doesn't matter if your search volume is there because you've targeted something more specific.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really good. And just one more time, in case anyone missed it, what was the extension called?
Detailed SEO extension.
Perfect.
But there's if you Google extensions for looking at metadata for Chrome, there'll be lots of them, dozens of them.
Excellent stuff, and that will give you a good idea. So that's a brilliant piece of advice there. So if we're thinking about, well, we've all got competition in one way or another, or similar, but we can start to say, literally go on and search your own business, whoever comes at the top, go on their website and see the metadata that they're known for and utilize that. Now, if you were being perhaps a little bit lazy and you just cut and paste it, would that have any effect on you or them?
Yeah, again, remember that Google wants to serve the best businesses, if you like. Um, the if you copy and paste content, copy and paste metadata, and you were the librarian, let's put you back in that position, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I was the original author. I've been creating content on a regular basis, posting, once or twice a month, informative content about the industry, about, where I am. And another person comes along and basically copies and pastes my text. Let's assume that your brain is clever enough to know that. And the algorithm absolutely knows when people have been plagiarizing, essentially. And your job is to satisfy the user that came into the door, through the door at your library, and make sure that they're always happy. I would say that you're going to send them still to me.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because I'm just thinking of the analogy there, and I'm thinking, in the library thing, we're really taking this to the nth degree here. But in the library thing, like you get the classics. So, like, one of the Bronte sister publishers or some works by Shakespeare, everyone in the world's printed that stuff. And it would be a case of, well, I'd take you to the original probably, unless you wanted a hardback or a softback. That might be the only thing. And as you said earlier, I suppose the only different definition there might be, well, you're really local to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going to be very small that it's a chance of you having an exact same, ranking because you copied.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there are only, if you looked to Google to define a term or where does something come from, you'll see lots of data that is the same because there are only so many ways that you can answer certain questions.
Yes.
So to an extent, copied data is not the be all and end all in terms of it would ruin everything because sometimes it can't be avoided. And Google also understands that. Sure. But if I set up in competition to you and I basically copied everything that you're doing, Google's intelligent enough to understand that. Now, one of the things that was just before we go, I wanted just to touch on 4 elements. So Google doesn't publish its instruction booklet to the SEO, to its algorithm. You have to understand what it's looking for, but it does give you really good guidance. And it published this thing a few years ago called an acronym called EAT. It then added to it an extra E to it. So it's now EAT, if you like. And it's 4 pillars of particularly when regarding to content that Google looks for. The first E is your experience. It added this one more recently. I'll touch on that in a second. The traditional ones were expertise, authority, and trust. Now, if you can satisfy through your content all 4 of those pillars, you are largely there. There are technical things, you need to make sure that your website still loads quickly and it doesn't have pages that are missing or orphan pages or redirects that aren't in place, because if you ticked all of the EAT boxes but technically your website wasn't sound, Google's going to be reluctant to send people there because they're going to get a bad user journey.
Right.
But if you satisfy the technical elements of your website and you satisfy the content pillars, if you like, then you are by and large going to be competing at that higher level. Now, the trust and the authority, the expertise almost sounds like one thing, but if you break it down, it's not. An expert is an expert on subject matter. They know about their business. So look at your content and provide content to satisfy that box by making sure that all the things that people would ask you about your business could be pricing, could be what happens next, could be the process, could be contract lengths, could be anything. But all those, like we as a business, we've written everything down that people have asked us over the last 2 years, and we try to explain that into our website because we know that Google will help us, will see us as an expert, and we will tick that box highly. Imagine it sort of scores it out of 10. 10 out of 10s are great. It's not always necessary to be a 10 out of 10 in every area, but work towards increasing your score in those areas. So include the content and information that talks about your services, your business, to the level that the users would be satisfied when they come to your website.
Mm-hmm.
A is authority. Now that means that you care more about the industry, or as much about the industry as you do about yourself. It really means that you're contributing in a wider sense. Your business is contributing in a wider sense. You know where you fit. So stats pages, information pages, comparison pages, those kind of things show that you are more than just self-looking. You are contributing in a wider sense. So those are important to tick. The T stands for trust. In my opinion, there's three main ways that you can get trust. And the reason why I've mentioned this is because I think that if you duplicate all of your content, you get minus points. It's ruining that trust in Google's eyes. But you can publish case studies, you can publish testimonials. Those are valuable in terms of content, but make sure that you look for opportunities in a PR sense to get other websites talking about your business. You could say you're the best coach in the world, and you might be right. And I'm not going to dispute that. But if somebody independent actively says, Jeremy, an action coach, that's where you need to go to, that adds so much more weight than you talking about yourself as an expert. We trust recommendations, and essentially a backlink from a high authority domain is like a strong recommendation. So that builds the T. The E, for experience, got added more recently or talked about more recently. And I think I can understand why. You might have been doing this business for 20 years. I might produce a website that is as good as yours in 20 minutes because I'm good at producing websites. So the differentiator, if you're the librarian, is to who to go to, is you'll go and you'll point people to the books or the business, if you like, that demonstrates that they have everything: expertise, authority, and trust, but they can also demonstrate the experience, because you know that the user is likely to get a better journey, have a better experience with people who've been there and done it. So talking about how long you've been in the industry, the case studies, a little bit of that is then just the longevity of it. Making sure you're publishing these things frequently tells Google that you've got the experience as well.
Wow, that's a fantastic insight there. That when we look at people's USP, so their unique selling proposition, sometimes the how long you've been going isn't that important to a consumer, but you're saying to Google it is. So that's a really interesting insight there in terms of your experience.
We do keyword strategy sessions for clients before we start any campaign. And part of that session, we do a one-to-one for about an hour with our clients to understand their business better. And we talk about their objectives and the things that they want to promote, whether it's a product or a service, even down to, what things are more profitable, what would get you a better return if we concentrated on those areas. Sometimes people have a service that they just enjoy doing, giving more than others. And so they go, actually, I'd really like to push that. And then when you get a good understanding of their business and you go to their website, often it's so sad to see that there's this disconnect. And it's like in that hour you can become really passionate about their business, but if you looked at their website, you go, that's not conveyed. And you're not always there to supplement your website. So your website needs to do the best job that it can do and give all of that information and partake it, which is why we put together the 100 Club, because if you can make it easy for people to update their website, then they'll do it. If there's challenges to overcome, whether it's cost or time or trying to understand how to do it yourself, then those things stay on your to-do list. They never reach the top. And this idea of making sure that your website evolves isn't for vanity. It's literally to give Google, the librarian, information that shows that your website is evolving at the same pace as your business is evolving.
That's a brilliant insight there as well. Yes, I mean we all kind of know the frequency of the more you put on or the consistency that you put on. Google likes that, but you've really explained it very well as to why and what you should be putting on and how straightforward it can be and not as onerous as people do. But like all of these things, if we leave it too long, then we feel like it's a massive basket to do all at once. And what we're saying is a little bit often, just like most social media promotion, it's that same sort of thing. And again, if we're using copy for one thing, we can use it across all three and taking it further forward like that. So, Paul, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but it's super insightful information there. And of course, you're a member of our No Limits community. So if anybody wants to reach out, you can do so directly to Paul, or leave comments in the bottom of this video, or just reach out to one of the coaches and we can connect you on there as well. And I'm sure Paul will talk through some more. We'd love to have you back because this has been really interesting and half an hour flies by. So thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for the attendees. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Karen, for sorting it all out. And we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Tuesday, it's Christmas. I don't know where we are on next Tuesday. I might have done the wrong thing there. But anyway,
No, see you next time next year.
next year. Wow, fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed that. Thanks again, Paul. And I look forward to seeing the next Munch and Learn in the new year.
Take care.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.